Benvenuti a tutti, and welcome to another edition of Italian America Long Island. My name is Dave Anthony Setta-Ducati. Today's guest was born in Italy and came to the United States as a young girl. At the present time, Gia Montelbano is very active in the Italian American community, especially with St. Brigid's Church in Westbury. Gia, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thank you, Dave.
Gia, why don't you tell us a little bit about your life in Italy before you came here to the United States?
My other life.
Yes.
So, I was born in a small town in southern Italy, about 15 miles northeast of Naples. It's called Durezzano, and it's actually on the border between the province of Caserta and the province of Benevento, mostly in two-thirds into Benevento. About 2,000 residents. Small town in a valley. So when you wake up in the morning and you look around, there are beautiful mountains all around you. They've installed windmills now, so it's very picturesque. So I was there until I was about 11. My earliest memories are probably of being taken to kindergarten. That was, l'asilo, which was run by the nuns, and I was having no part of that. So every day my mom would get a call, please come get her, she won't stop crying. So I just wanted to be with my mom, and then I remember early on in first grade, the school was very austere. There was nothing in the classroom. Right? There was like a blackboard, desks, and a map on the wall. During the winter, there was no central heating. We would have the braciere, in the middle of the room with the coals to heat the room, and somehow it would always find its way under the teacher's desk, and we were always cold. So my mom would give me a glass bottle filled with hot water wrapped in a dish towel for me to take with me so I could hold it and keep my hands warm, And then the boys decided they would put chestnuts in the braciere so that the teacher would not keep it under her desk anymore.
So it was quite different from the American school that you went to when you first came here.
Very, very. Talk about culture shock.
Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
So when I first came here, it was around the Easter holiday. So schools were on break. My parents had heard that most of the people in our community were sending their children to St. Brigid's Elementary School, and they wanted to send me there. Probably wisdom guided the school to say we wouldn't know what to do with a child who doesn't speak a word of English. And so I was placed in the public schools, and they had amazing support at the time. They didn't have a bilingual program, but they had English as a second language, and we were bused to a specific school. All of the non-English speaking students of every age, from elementary to high school. We had an amazing teacher. I will never forget this woman, Eliana Bellis. She was the most patient, the most brilliant teacher. She would literally sit and wait for the bus with us and drill us on vocabulary and other things, because not a minute would be lost. And I think that it was probably thanks to Eliana Bellis that I could speak English in about a year.
Now, you still maintain your Italian-speaking skills?
Yeah, I do. Because in our community, well, especially at St. Brigid's, we do a lot in the Italian language. We have an Italian Mass at 8:30 in the morning every Sunday. And a lot of the things that we do are in Italian. We have our children, the Italian cultural class children, that is taught by La Signora Teresa Tallini, who is amazing with them. She brings them to church every Friday during Lent, and they lead the Stations of the Cross for us in Italian. When we have events, dinner dances, or whatever activity that we're having, she will bring them, and they will sing the national anthem, Lino di Mameli, for us. She teaches them prayers in Italian, because of course prayer and culture is one thing for us. And the kids love it.
And the kids do love it.
Yeah.
So are these just centered with people that live in Westbury, or do people from all over the island come to this Mass?
So we are fortunate that we have people that come from as far as the North Shore and the South Shore to participate in our activities.
Because it's the only Italian Mass that I know of on the island.
There are others, but they're not necessarily with the same regularity. They're not every Sunday. you know, so people know that they can come to ours. I am always surprised when I see the faces that will come, and especially if we're having something special like the Living Nativity. You know, you see, we have the children involved, the parents come, the grandparents, maybe the grandparents were originally from Westbury, but now, you know, they've moved, they've gone to other places, and they will come back. So the church will fill up, and it's just such a beautiful thing.
Now, getting back to you, you're traveling from Italy to the United States. What did you like about Italian culture in Italy, and while you were living there, and what do you like about American culture living here now?
So my answer would be skewed because I was a child in Italy. Maybe as an adult I would not see things the same way, but I like the simplicity of life there. It was never, back in the day that I was there, it was never this crazy mad dash all day long to rush from one thing to another. I liked the simplicity of the foods. I liked knowing everybody in town. If I weren't related to half my neighbors, I honestly wouldn't know who they are,
Oh, my
you know, right now. So I liked that part. I liked that you can always smell nature in the air. I mean, we didn't live in a city. We lived in a town. But you always knew, even when you were in the clusters of homes, there was that scent of green, of trees and grass. It was earthy, you know.
Yeah. Now, would you ever want to go back and live in Italy?
So here's the thing. If tomorrow I won the lottery and I could become a professional student, I would make Italy my home base, and I would study the various cultures in Europe. I would study the history. I would study the architecture, and Italy would be my home base. You know, I like the idea that you can hop on a train and go to a different country for a day and then come back. You know, so I would do that. But other than that, you know, my roots are here now.
Okay, so now you're completely. How about, have you made any vacation trips back there?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Okay, why don't you tell us about a few of those?
So now, as an old lady, I get it, you know. But when I first went back the first couple of times, it was almost unsettling, and I'll tell you why. When you leave a place, you have a snapshot in your head of what that place is like. You bring it with you, and this is what we're doing here. We're trying to preserve that snapshot. In my family, when my children communicate with their grandparents, they speak in the Neapolitan dialect, right? But when I go back, nobody even in town speaks a dialect anymore. It's looked down at, right? The town has developed. Homes sprung up where it was just green. You know, there's a lot of technology now that wasn't there then. So it's not the place that I remember it. And every time I go back, I have to readjust to a new place, basically, you know. You're always searching for the place you left.
Right, right. Now, I know that you have a very strong devotion to Padre Pio. How did that come about?
Yeah. So the thing about Padre Pio is once he comes in your life's not your own anymore, right? It started with my mom. She had gone to Italy like they did every year. On the way back at the airport, she got sick. She had what was eventually diagnosed as acute vertigo, but she couldn't stand up. She had no balance. She couldn't fly back. She had to stay there a while longer. And the thing with vertigo, as you may know, it's not just that you're off balance, but there's this emotional sense of dread, like something horrible is going to happen, right? So when she came home, after 6 months, she was able to, you know, actually have balance where she could drive again. But half of her head, literally split in half, was numb. You could hit it with a hammer, she had no sensation. And so she learned to live with that. For 2 years, we went everywhere. You know, they said, we don't think you're dying, you don't have a tumor, you don't have an aneurysm, we don't know what it is. But she would say to me, it feels like I'm carrying wood. It's numb, it's weird. I can't hear the same, you know. And so after a couple of years, they went back to Italy and they went to Pietrelcina to visit Padre Pio's birthplace. And the way my mother told the story was when she walked into the home, she had this sense of like she was going to her own roots, like back to the home she grew up in. It was something familiar. And then she felt a warm hand on her head. And she turned around thinking it was my dad, but actually she was alone in the room. And then she said, I just felt like I had to cry. She cried all afternoon. She went home. She went to bed. She woke up the next morning. The numbness was gone, never to come back.
So this happened when she went into Padre Pio's home.
Right, right.
And then when was she aware that it was Padre Pio?
I don't think that she ever said to me it was Padre Pio, but she said I was in his home and I was in the room alone. And there was this catharsis, like she cried. You know, it was almost like when you go to confession and you have a clean slate.
Okay.
And then it went away and it never came back. And from that day on, my mother had a sense that Padre Pio had given her this gift. It wasn't like she had cancer and so her life was saved. It was a minor kind of thing, but she felt like it was a gift and it was telling her that she needed to do something, you know. And so when Bishop Cavallotto came from Italy and sat with my parents at their kitchen table and said, you know, there are Padre Pio prayer groups springing up all over the place. You guys are like, you know, right there. Padre Pio's, you know, was born right near you. Like, how do you not have a Padre Pio prayer group here in St. Brigid's? He says, you know, Giuseppe, why don't you start a prayer group? And then, you know, my mother knew that this is what needed to be done.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about this prayer group. How do you meet and when do you meet? So
our prayer evening tries to be, when the church is available, the second Monday of the month. We have a rosary, and then our spiritual director, Father Ernel Roccos, comes in and says Mass for us in Italian. And that's about 8 out of the 12 months. And then on occasion, we have special celebrations. In May, we try to celebrate close to his birthday on the 25th, and we have a birthday party. We have a Mass, and then we literally have a birthday party with cake and, you know, someone dresses as Padre Pio, blows out the candles. We ask guests to bring gifts, and the gifts would be clothing, you know, t-shirts, socks, toiletries for the men in the Padre Pio shelter in the Bronx that's run by the Franciscan Friars.
Now, are you in contact at all with the Padre Pio Foundation of America in Connecticut?
So we have been in contact in the past. We've never really created a close bond, and I'm not really sure why. I think mostly because we're so busy. We have so much stuff that we're doing. But one of our missions is to communicate and create these bonds, you know, like a net or a web with other Padre Pio prayer groups and other communities that actually follow Padre Pio. We are looking to do things together with other Padre Pio prayer groups. So one of our closest connection is the Padre Pio prayer group in Woodbury. They've, you know, joined us for things that we've done, and we join them. They always come out really big for us when we do the Padre Pio vigil on the 22nd. The feast day is on the 23rd of September, and most groups will do something on that day.
Right.
We actually celebrate the vigil, and there's a reason. Not just because we don't want to clash with them, but actually Padre Pio died at 2:30 in the morning on the 23rd in Italy, which is actually 8:30 in the evening on the 22nd for us here.
Okay.
And so whatever we're doing on that evening at 8:30, we stop and we have a short transitus service, just like they have for St. Francis, you know, to just honor the passage of his soul from the body into heaven.
Now, your church is very active with many other Italian-American religious activities. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your, for instance, the Christmas activities that you have there?
Oh, yes. So one of the things that we try to do at our Christmas Mass is everyone gets a chance to come and kiss the baby Jesus. It's unheard of in churches here now because they're like, oh, you're going to get sick, you're going to kiss this baby that other people kissed or whatever, you know. But no one has ever gotten sick from doing this, and it's a beautiful thing. And then on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is January 6th, and then it moves to the closest Sunday, we have a living nativity, and it's a lot of pageantry, and we are so blessed that our pastor just rolls with the punches, and he loves it, you know. We have all of the children are dressed as shepherds and angels. We have the Holy Family, so Joseph, Mary, and 99% of the time it's a real baby that was just born. We have Herod, King Herod. No one to play him because he's a bad guy, right?
He's the bad guy.
We have the Magi, the three kings that come, and then we have, of course, the La Befana, because we're Italian. We have Santa Claus, because he's actually St. Nicholas.
Well, why don't you explain to our audience La Befana?
Oh, La Befana. So the traditional story of La Befana goes like this. There's a little old woman who lost her husband. She's a widow. And she lost her child. And she's very bitter. And all she does is she sits home and she cleans and she bakes these cookies, because that's the only thing that gives her joy. The three kings are on their way. They're trying to find the baby Jesus. They stop at her house. She gives them water. She gives them some cookies. They invite her to go with them. And she says no. Absolutely not. She's like, go. They leave. But now she has second thoughts. She thinks about her child that she's lost. And she feels bad. And she wants to find this baby that they're looking for. So she packs up the cookies. And she tries to catch up with these three kings. And of course, she hasn't caught up with them because she's way too far behind and she's old and whatever. She can't go that fast. And so now she roams the earth looking for this baby. And wherever she finds a child, she leaves a little something for them. So this is our old lady Befana, not the pretty one that rides on the broom and whatever.
Okay, and so you do that in your church as part of the Christmas?
We do that, yes. She actually comes to venerate the baby Jesus in the church. She's, right between Santa Claus and Padre Pio. And then after Mass, and after all of this is done, we go across to St. Anthony's Hall, and we have a celebration. La Befana comes, she gives everybody, in the old days they would give oranges, right? And so she brings little gifts for the children. And then this past year, at that same time, we instituted the contest of the Presepi. And the idea is that in Italy, they have these contests, not because we want to outdo each other, but because we want to show how much we love Jesus by building the best nativity scene we can. Right? So we had adults, we had teens, and we had children's categories. They were instructed to, be creative, use whatever they had around the house, don't go out and spend a ton of money. And quite honestly, it went over pretty well.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, are you familiar with the history of the Presepi? I mean, my understanding is it was St. Francis that started this.
Yes. St. Francis was really like think outside the box kind of, person. And he felt that people really needed that visual. They needed to see it and not just try to imagine something that they had never seen. And in those days, the people that he preached to had never seen some of the master works, the paintings of some of the masters depicting the birth of Jesus. So people had to use their imagination. And he was really a trendsetter in that. And we're so proud because Padre Pio is a Franciscan, St. Francis was his spiritual father.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, you also have a Carnevale.
Oh, yes, Carnevale. So, there's always a divide between the North and the South. Mm-hmm. And so the Carnevale in the North is very different from the Carnevale in the South.
Okay.
But if you come to our Carnevale celebration, it's a little schizophrenic because we try to do half the room in Northern style and the other half of the room in Southern style. And it's really a lot of fun. We do games, people dress up, usually the food is the focus. We do have plenty of food, but the focus here is to be together in community.
So tell us the differences. I know in Venice it's very heavy into the masks and costumes.
Right. So Venice is much more formal. There's a lot of that, the long flowing gowns and the velours and the ornate masks. Whereas down by us in the warmer climate, we have Alecchino, we have Pulcinella. It's more of a jester, light-hearted kind of thing.
Okay, the Commedia dell'arte.
Yes.
Okay, okay, wonderful. And are there any other events that you have with your church throughout the year?
Oh my goodness, where to begin? So on the Feast of St. Joseph, we make pasta e fagioli and le zeppole di San Giuseppe. There's a bilingual mass, and then we go again from holy hour to happy hour. And there's wine, and there's dancing, there's homemade cookies. I'm trying to go, chronologically. The Italian community has moved into the American lifestyle a little bit, and there's a golf outing every year to raise funds for the parish and for charity. They do, oh my goodness, I can't even remember everything that we do. But, the gems are really like the culinary tour of Italy.
That's what I wanted to get to, the culinary tour. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So when people think that they're going to a dinner, they pay $100 for a ticket. They sit at this table with the same 12 people. The music is so loud, you can't communicate. we wanted to do something a little different. So we do this in the school gym. There are 3 regions on one side, 3 regions on the other. We try to switch them up. And each region is decorated in its style,
Okay.
right? So like this year we had for Veneto, we had Venice, and actually the president of the Italian community literally built, a gondola, life-size gondola. And each region then will have a regional food or 2, depending, and a regional wine. There are strolling musicians, there's a DJ. I'm sorry, I'm using my hands a lot, right?
No,
I'm so
that's
Italian.
fine. No, that's fine.
I'm so Italian.
It's fine.
So yeah, each region has its own food, it's got its own wine. We also try to do photo ops. So this year we had for Emilia Romagna, because they have the racetrack, which is very famous, we had a motorcycle. And I could not tell you how people were fighting to get on this motorcycle. Everybody wanted to take a picture with the gondola. In the Molise we had the mercato with the hanging goods that people would buy. I think it is the first time we did it, this is the first event that people actually came to us and said, please, please, please do this again next year.
Wonderful. It sounds great. Now, so you've only done it once?
We've done it twice.
Okay.
We did it 2 years ago, and then because of limited space and availability in the gym, we didn't do it last year, so we did it again this year. When you check into this event, you get a passport, and then you go to each station, each region, and they stamp your passport. And the following year when we do this, if you bring your passport and it has all of the stamps, you get a frequent flyer discount.
Oh my goodness,
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
So now, did you change the regions the first year to the second year?
Yes, so this year we had Molise, which was new. We didn't have Sicily. We substituted that. We had Emilia Romagna, which was new. We did have Campania. I think, because Campania is our heart, we're going to have that forever.
Okay.
We had Lazio, and a catering facility in our community was gracious enough to sponsor that region. So they sent 2 roast pigs, literally 2 of them, for that region.
Wow.
And there was a long line at that particular station.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but last October, the Sons of Italy, along with Steve Ballone from the Suffolk County Executive, of course, they had a Taste of Italy event, and I was able to be part of it. But one of the things that they did was the Order Sons of Italy in America had put together regional dresses and costumes for each region of Italy, and they had done a lot of research, and they made these wonderful costumes, and they had a fashion show. And the costumes are designed by this lady who works for Steve Ballone in the Office of Women and Minority Affairs. She's also a dress designer, so that any size woman could wear these.
No, I need this
It's
woman.
amazing.
I need this woman in my life, please.
Amazing. She did an amazing job. And so maybe in the future, when you have this event, you could contact the main office, which is in Belmore, of the Sons of Italy, and see if they can have those particular regions bring ladies with those dresses.
That would be amazing.
So it'd be another little thing.
I live in Nassau. I didn't know about this, but that is really amazing. Yes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Well, it was sponsored by the State Order Sons of Italy.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what they did. So, how has your living in Italy affected your perspective on things in America?
Oh boy, ask my children.
Okay.
Ask my children. So, there's a lot of talk these days about the millennials and how they have a totally different perspective on life. And I felt like I always saw that. I remember my first semester in college, English 101, we were asked to write an essay of how, as a woman, I felt discriminated against. And I was amazed because coming from the Italian culture where, look, there are many beautiful things about our heritage, but at the end of the day, when I lived there, it was still a scandal for an adult woman to wear pants, in the small town where we lived. And so I had a totally different perspective. I was the only one whose essay said, I don't feel discriminated. Like, you know what? Probably women aren't even supposed to go to college, and here I am. Every time that I put my mind to doing something in this amazing country where there's so much latitude and so much opportunity for growth, as long as I worked hard enough, I earned it and I achieved it. So I don't feel like I'm, being discriminated against. And that was a shock to my college professor, right?
Wow.
But I feel like there are opportunities. I feel like the media and culture wants to make this big deal, this big divide about feminism. But isn't feminism about being who you want to be? And if you want to be someone who is raising children at home or is sacrificing a career for their family, shouldn't that be part of what feminism is, right?
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, do you feel that that the Italian culture is being lost somehow here in the United States?
Definitely, definitely. There's this push to assimilate. Even though we talk about equality and we talk about inclusiveness, whether it's in the schools or in the workplace, there's a current, it's like an undercurrent. People aren't even realizing that in reality, if you talk about your Italian heritage, you can't help but talk about your faith. And that's almost a crime these days, right? The human body is just that. It's a physical body that houses this thing that we call the mind and the soul. If those things are not being nurtured, you're not a happy human being, right? And so art is one of those things that expands your soul.
Well, Gia, it has been absolutely wonderful to speak with you. You're such a wonderful person to talk to.
You're so sweet, thank you.
And you have such a fascinating history. And I want to wish you the best in the future. And I'm sure that Padre Pio is watching over you and your family.
Thank you, Dave. This was great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.